we're coming towards the end of coasts, okay? The depositional and erosional landforms are all finished. What we're going to look at today is just some other coastal features. Okay, so this is your headings, okay, Thursday, May the 7th. And we're going to look at some other coastal features which occur along coastlines. Now, some of them we have here, some we don't, alright? So you have to remember, around the world, coastlines, as we said, are very dynamic, alright? And they can be quite unique. Alright, like, for example, the Bahamas has some of the most unique coasts or kind of island network in the world, alright? So what we have, not everybody else does, okay? I'm going to start off with a couple of key terms, just these three here. I'm not sure if you've seen this word before. It's fjord. Now, this is Americanized spelling, European spelling. Okay, it's both pronounced fjord. All right. The FJ comes from the Scandinavian version. All right, so places like Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. All right, but the Vikings also used this term as they spread out. So, for example, the place I'm from in Wexford, or in Ireland, is called Wexford. Alright, because I kind of live near a small fjord, but when the Vikings got there, that's what they thought it was, so they called it that. Okay, so that's the origins of that word. This is an area of flooded land which used to be covered by a glacier, which is now retreated. Okay, think again, Sweden, Finland, Norway, very, very cold parts of the world, so when the Ice Age in particular came, they would have had huge glaciers sitting on them. Area. This is a river valley by the sea which has been submerged. As we said, all rivers flow into the sea. Alright, now again, during these level changes of the ocean, during ice ages and so on, some of these valleys actually got flooded. Alright, so when the water levels dropped, there was rivers there. When the sea levels rose again, they flooded a lot of these valleys and they became areas. Some are quite spectacular. And then a raised beach, we're going to look at that first. In Bunnet, so these are beaches which have been raised way above their original position by the sea. They now sit well above sea level, but still have all the characteristics of a beach. So it's very simple, a raised beach. And again, what we're looking at today is mainly features caused by rising and falling sea levels, all right, and the influence of ice on our coasts. So these three will be our main features for today. We're going to jump over to Bunnet, page 151, okay? Okay, so top of page 151, okay? We're just going to look at some types of coasts. Alright, so neither the level of the land nor the level of the sea remains unchanged for long periods, okay? Remember that word dynamic. Coasts are constantly changing, alright? You've got that moving factor, which is the ocean, and then you've got that very varied factor, which is the coastline. They can be made of different types of rocks, different strengths of rocks. There can be all sorts of things, the level of weathering involved, and so on. Okay, land and sea levels have changed relative to one another also. Now we know sea levels have, but through ice ages the land has also moved up and down. There's another force which can cause the land to move up and down, I think we should all know, is our tectonics. Alright, there are cliffs both now out of the reach of the sea, alright, there's drowned river valleys and submerged forests. So there's loads of different things that have occurred due to the changes of sea level and also shifts in the level of the land, alright. So we're just going to focus on changing sea levels really. New Wider World, page 303. If you want some further information, we'll glance at that it's just one paragraph. Okay. So there is evidence in many countries which suggests that one part of the crust has been pushed up relative to another. So here we're back with the crust. Okay, you need to start to understand how all of these natural things are intertwined, okay? So the crust can move, and that can move our coasts up or down, and so on. Okay, particularly in Norway, there are sea beaches which now lie several meters above sea level. All right, this indicates that either the land has been pushed up or the level of the sea has fallen. So this is essentially our raised beach. Okay, we're going to look at it a bit more further down this page, but think about it, a raised beach. Okay, so if we found evidence that these landforms exist, but they're not by the sea. So either the sea level has fallen or the land has been pushed up through tectonic processes or through the change in the amount of ice during an ice age. Okay, so that's all that's happening here. Either the land has been pushed up or the sea level has dropped and stayed low. All right. Now, until about 50,000 years ago, the fall in the level of the oceans was such that Britain was joined to Europe. All right, so that's just another little example. I've put certainly similar in the Bahamas. So remember, when the ice ages happened, all right, a lot of the ocean water was turned up into ice, okay, which was almost like putting a huge sponge in the ocean, squeezing it and then letting it absorb all the water. All right, so as the ice formed, the sea levels dropped because loads of the seawater was taken up into ice. So at one point, there's evidence for what we call a land bridge from Britain to France. Okay, so you can actually walk. It's exactly the same as the Bahamas. Okay, so when the sea levels dropped, you could easily walk between the islands, all right, because the water is so shallow. It wouldn't have taken a big drop for that to become reality. Okay, at the bottom of page 151 then. So this might sound a bit complicated, but it's pretty much going back to that point of either the sea level dropped or else the land was pushed up in all cases. Okay, as sea level rose further, all right, so after the ice age, the sea levels began to rise again. The lower parts of valleys, all right, were inundated or drowned. So what you had was sea levels dropping massively. Okay, river valleys and things forming. Think back to our map skills topic, all right. And then as the ice began to melt, the sea levels rose again, and these river valleys were drowned. That is your ria, as we've already defined. Okay. Then the only difference between a fjord and a ria is a fjord was formed by a valley formed by ice, whereas a ria was a valley formed by a river. That's all it is. Okay, we'll look at those two in a bit more detail in a minute. As the ice melted, and this is an important bit here, this is kind of a tricky concept, but again, it's fairly straightforward. As the ice melted, all right, and sea level rose, so did the land surfaces which had been depressed by the heavy weight of the ice. So the ice, during the ice age, those huge ice sheets or huge glaciers, which is a massive big sheet of ice. It could be over a mile thick. Okay, so if you imagine standing looking at it, it'd be a mile high, easy. Now these went down all over the land and some floated on the sea. Okay, now so they weighed a huge amount. These glaciers weighed millions of tons. So when they were sitting on the land, they were pushing the land down. Now as these glaciers began to melt and what we say is retreat, okay, move back towards the poles, the North and South Pole, that weight is taken off the land, which enables it to pop up again or to rise up slightly. Okay, so as the ice melted, all right, and sea level rose, so too did the land surfaces which had been depressed by the heavy weight of the ice sheets. The slow rise of the land in coastal regions has caused sea beaches and cliffs to be uplifted above the sea level today. Such beaches are called raised beaches. So what's actually happening is, yes, sea levels dropped, but after the ice melted, the sea levels would have risen again. But also, that huge removal of weight from on top of the land allowed the land to raise up as well. Now we're not talking a huge amount, okay, but again, meters, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 meters, which in a global scale of things is not actually that much. All right, but just again, the land in the Baltic is a region, it's an area in Europe, is still rising about 20 millimeters per year. So they've done experiments over there to measure the land each year, and it's actually, especially near the coast, it's still recovering from the ice age. Okay, so it's still rising up. So any coastal features like a beach are going to get higher and higher and higher each year. Okay, and again, they still look like a beach. It's still like the material, the plants, the sediment, all that is still the same, but it's just raised above the coastline, the high tide. So rias, I've drawn a little arrow over here very quickly. This is the lower part of a river valley. Remember, all rivers flow into the sea. So the lower part is where a river meets the sea, which is not filled with sediment, but which has been submerged by the sea. So again, sea levels, all right, sea levels go down. All right, rivers flow over the land to the new sea level. All right, so let's say you had sea level here. during Ice Age drops down to here. There's sea level A and B. Okay, and the land is going down like this. The river would have flown into the sea here. When the sea level drops, the river continues down here. Then the sea level rises up again, and now you have all of this valley here gets flooded by the ocean. Okay, so it's just a river valley that has been flooded as sea levels rose again.